This is the ultimate guide deep dive for you on Rosa, the Doom Blossom from Etheria.
That's right.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're going to go over her best build, modules, shells, passives, which content she really shines in, and cover her pros and cons too.
Basically getting you completely set up with her.
Exactly. So, Rosa.
Yeah.
She's an SSR character, odd element, Doki entertainment faction.
Yeah.
And anyone who's faced her probably knows why they call her Doom Blossom.
Oh, yeah. Annoying is putting it mildly sometimes.
Right. She's this crit-reliant follow-up unit. But today, we're digging deeper than just the stats. We want to understand her DNA, how to make her bloom for you. So what would you say is the absolute, linchpin of her kit? What makes her stand out?
That's the perfect place to start. The real magic with Rosa isn't just one skill, it's the synergy. It's how everything weaves together, creating this constant stream of attacks.
Okay.
So you start with her first skill, Insane Crash, single target, hits 3 times, pretty standard so far. But here's the kicker. At max level, if that final hit is a crit, there's a 50% chance it pushes back the target's turn meter by 8%.
Ah, okay. So right away, crits aren't just damage, they're control too.
Exactly. Right out of the gate, you see critical hits are her engine. They fuel everything else.
So Insane Crash kind of sets the stage, adds a bit of control, but it feels like maybe that's just the appetizer. What's the core mechanic?
Precisely. Appetizer is a good word for it. The real heart, the main course, is her second skill, the passive, the Stalker. This is where her signature debuff comes in. Bladeheart Bloom.
Bladeheart Bloom, yes.
Every single time Rosa lands a critical hit, which she wants to do constantly, she puts this one-turn Bladeheart Bloom on the target. At max level, it's a 100% chance. Super reliable.
Okay, and what does the Bloom do?
2 things. First, the target takes 15% extra damage from basic attacks. Nice little bonus. But the crucial part, the game changer, is this. When that target gets critically hit as the main target by any of your allies.
Any ally.
Any ally. Rosa immediately performs a follow-up attack on them with her own basic attack. It only triggers once per turn per enemy, but still, she's attacking outside her turn, constantly.
Whoa. Okay, that's huge. Free attacks are always good.
Absolutely. And that's why getting skill 2, the Stalker, to level 5 is just non-negotiable, really. You need that 100% application chance and the follow-up trigger working reliably. It's the key to her damage.
Right. Consistency is king there. So she's got this constant damage engine running thanks to her allies critting, and then her ultimate Grand Hunt. That sounds like the team enabler.
Spot on. Grand Hunt is her area of effect skill. Hits all enemies 3 times. But the damage, while nice, isn't even the main point. Its biggest impact is applying a 2-turn critical rate plus debuff to all your allies. Increases their crit rate by 30%.
30%. Okay, that's massive.
It's huge. It directly fuels her own Bladeheart Bloom by making sure everyone else is critting more often, which in turn makes her attack more often. Synergy, right?
Yeah, I see it now. It all feeds back into itself.
Exactly. And there's more. On critical hits, Grand Hunt also has a 40% chance to inflict a 2-turn speed debuff, cutting enemy speed by 30%. Gives your team a real turn advantage.
Nice. Control and team buffing.
And just like the Stalker, getting Grand Hunt to level 5 is also really crucial. It lowers the cooldown, letting you keep that team-wide crit rate buff up basically 100% of the time. You need that buff active.
Okay, so maxing skill 2 and skill 3 seems paramount. It's all about those critical hits driving everything. And prowess levels. Duplicates. How much do they help?
They definitely round her out nicely. Prowess 2 gives her 8% more base critical rate, which, directly helps everything we just talked about.
Makes sense.
Prowess 4 gives 12% effect accuracy. That's important for landing the turn meter pushback from skill 1 and the speed debuff from skill 3, especially against enemies who might resist debuffs.
Good point. Consistency again.
And Prowess 5 is a nice general boost. 10% more damage dealt, 10% less damage taken. Makes her hit harder and last longer. Just makes her generally better.
Okay, so we've got the mechanics down. She's this synergistic, crit-loving follow-up machine. But now the big question. How do we actually build her? I've heard she's kind of pricey, a lattice black hole.
Yeah, you heard right. Rosa is, let's call her a high investment unit. A bit of a luxury, maybe. She can struggle early on if you don't have those skills maxed in good crit gear.
So it's a goal to work towards, not an instant win button.
Exactly. Think of it like tuning a performance car. Takes time and resources, but when she's tuned, oh boy. So let's talk shells, relics. There are a few top choices.
All right. Let's start with the one everyone talks about, Revelation. Why is that considered, her best?
Revelation is kind of tailor-made for her, honestly. Its main thing is it deals extra True indirect damage. That means it ignores defense equal to 12% of the target's max health every time the wearer lands a crit.
12% max health per crit.
Per crit. Now, there's a cap based on Rosa's attack, but still. And Rosa, she's a multi-hit machine, right?
Yeah.
Skill 1 hits 3 times, her follow-ups hit multiple times.
So tons of potential revelation procs.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially in area of effect fights. Her ultimate hits all enemies 3 times. If they all have Bladeheart Bloom, she follows up on all of them.
Yeah.
You could potentially get like 18 revelation procs just from one ultimate cycle across a few enemies. It just shreds high health targets.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty intense, especially against bosses or tanky enemies. But what if you don't have revelation, or maybe you want something else? Hear White Fang mentioned sometimes.
Yeah, White Fang is a solid general purpose damage shell. It does its own follow-up attack after Rosa acts 2 hits, and if it crits, it stacks up Rosa's critical damage up to 60% extra.
So more upfront crit damage scaling.
Right, it's consistent raw damage, good boost. But like you said, it often gets outperformed by Revelation, especially when that true damage scaling really matters against high health, high defense enemies. White Fang gives burst crit damage, Revelation gives relentless health shredding. Different tools.
Makes sense. And the other one I see is Count. What's the angle there?
Count is interesting. It gives flat attack, 1200, and a 10% life leech effect for 2 turns. For follow-up attackers like Rosa, whose damage isn't solely tied to the shell's direct hit, the raw stats and sustain can be really valuable.
So the more follow-up she lands, the more she heals, and the attack helps everything.
Exactly. Keeps her in the fight longer, doing her thing. And we should probably give a quick mention to Law of Silence. It's more of a niche player versus player defensive pick. Gives her Void at the start.
Void. Like invisible.
Kinda. She can't be targeted by single target attacks, takes less area damage, gets more effect resistance, buys her time to set up against really aggressive teams. Situational, but powerful in that situation.
Okay, so shells give the big picture effect. Now, modules, the sets. This is where it feels like you can really fine-tune things. What about the big 12-piece sets?
Right, 12-piece sets. For pure damage per second, Momentum is arguably the top dog for Rosa, gives 12% crit rate, which she loves. And the key part, her damage goes up by 6% for each debuff on the target, stacking up to 36%.
And she's always applying Bladeheart Bloom.
Always at least 1 debuff, yeah. And potentially the speed down from her ult, too. So she's getting a big chunk of that 36% bonus damage pretty consistently. It synergizes perfectly.
Okay, momentum sounds strong. What else in 12-piece?
Onslaught is the straightforward option. Just a big attack boost, 45% at 12 pieces. Simple, effective. Gets a bit more value if you're using Revelation, since that scales partly off her attack, and obviously good in multi-target fights.
And what about Keeneye? Sounds like it should be good crit damage and all that.
Ah, Keeneye. Yeah, it sounds good, gives crit damage and a damage boost that ramps down. But here's the trap. That damage boost doesn't apply to her follow-up attacks.
Seriously, not at all.
Nope. And since those follow-ups are like a huge chunk of her total damage, Keeneye ends up being pretty lackluster for her specifically. Avoid it.
Okay, that's a super important tip for people building her. Avoid Keeneye. Got it. What about 8-piece sets then?
For 8-piece, Fury is usually the go-to for most crit-based damage dealers. Simple, 12% extra damage on critical hits, boosts her main damage source. Can't really go wrong.
Solid choice. Any alternatives?
Harvest is a good alternative. It lets her ignore 30% of the target's defense if their health is over 50%, so it helps her hit harder at the start of fights, especially if your team doesn't have another source of defense reduction.
Okay, Fury for general crit damage, Harvest for early fight punch against defenses, and 6-piece sets, if you're missing a matching or need specific stats.
Yeah, for 6-piece, Furage is pure damage. Crit rate plus 12%, crit damage plus 20%. And this is a big, if your Rosa already has enough speed from substats or team buffs to keep Bladeheart Bloom up reliably,
then Furage gives the biggest damage numbers.
Exactly. But if she needs more speed, then Swift Raid is your best bet. Speed plus 15%, attack plus 20%, helps her hit those speed thresholds while still giving some offense.
So it's a trade-off. Pure damage with Fury Edge, if speed is covered, or speed in some attack with Swift Raid if she needs help getting turns.
Precisely. And just quickly, other mentions. Swift Rush for turn meter stuff in long fights, Battle Will for a chance at more follow-ups, Bloodbath for anti-burst defense and PvP, Bulwark for starting with immunity. More niche, but options exist.
Man, this is getting detailed. Okay, let's boil it down to the raw stats. Main stats on the gear pieces. Slots 1, 2, 3.
Okay, main stat, slot 1, attack percentage. Always attack percentage over flat attack, no question.
Got it. Slot 2.
Slot 2 is usually critical rate or critical damage. You pick whichever one you need more of to reach your targets, especially that 70% base crit rate goal.
Okay, balance it out. And slot 3.
Slot 3, odd damage percentage. It boosts her specific element damage, which is generally better than just generic damage percentage.
All right. Attack percent, crit rate, or crit damage, odd damage percent.
Mm-hmm.
And substats, what's the priority list look like?
Substat priority is key. Number 1, speed. Get enough speed so she takes turns frequently enough to keep Bladeheart Bloom active on key targets. How much depends on the fight and your team.
Speed first. Then
Critical rate until you hit that magic 70% unbuffed number after crit rate is capped.
critical damage.
Critical damage all the way. Stack as much as you can. That's your biggest damage multiplier after getting crits consistently. Then attack percentage for more damage. After that, effect accuracy becomes useful.
Why accuracy?
For making sure her skill 1 turn meter pushback lands, her skill 3 speed debuff lands, and importantly that Bladeheart Bloom itself applies even if the enemy has some effect resistance. It's lower priority than the damage stats, but good to have some.
And flat attack last.
Yeah, flat attack is kind of the lowest priority substat. So recap. Speed to threshold, crit rate to 70%, crit damage attack percent, effect accuracy, flat attack.
Perfect. And just to lock it in, shell passives, those extra stats on this shells.
Right. Slot 1, attack percent. Slot 2, crit rate or crit damage, maybe speed only if you're desperate for it. Slot 3, odd damage percent. Stick to those priorities.
Okay, wow. We've built her from the ground up, skill by skill, stat by stat.
Okay.
So let's put it all together. How does this optimized Rosa fit into a team? Who does she love playing with?
Right, the team aspect. She really clicks with characters who help her do her thing, crits and follow-ups. Lily is a fantastic partner.
Lily. How so?
Lily's twin trick skill gives Rosa gauge and lets her use her basic attack outside her turn. More attacks, more chances to crit, more Bladeheart Blooms. Plus, Lily gives a speed buff, which eases the speed requirement on Rosa's gear.
Oh, nice. Lets you focus more on damage stats for Rosa then.
Exactly. Takes the pressure off. And then there's the big one, Khloros.
Ah, yes, the Khloros combo. I've heard legends. Why is it so good?
It's all about Khloros' passive doom toll. It triggers extra effects based on how many hits allies land. And Rosa, with her multi-hit skills and constant follow-ups, she's arguably the best character in the game for triggering doom toll rapidly.
So Rosa basically turbocharges Khloros.
Completely. Each hit counts. The sheer volume of hits Rosa puts out means Khloros is just constantly popping off. And things like Union Bosses, Phantom Theater, that duo's damage output is just nuts. Really hard to beat.
Any other key allies?
Heinrich is another good one. He also does multi-hit attacks, brings his own team-wide crit rate buff, which stacks nicely, and generally amplifies damage while bringing utility. Helps ensure everyone is critting for Rosa.
So it sounds like she fits into crit-focused teams really well. Is she good across the board in terms of content or more specialized?
Honestly, she's incredibly versatile once built. Her ratings are consistently top tier T0, T0.5 in pretty much all player versus environment content. Generic PvE, Aurora stages, Doki challenges, Union Bosses, Phantom.
Even player versus player.
Yep, even high-level player versus player. Her kit just offers so much damage control, team buffing. You see her used in all sorts of teams. From pure damage squads in Aurora to control setups in TvP to sustain teams for long fights like Grim Pursuit. She really is adaptable.
That's great to hear. High investment, but pays off with versatility. Okay, let's wrap this up. The Doom Blossom Deep Dive. Quick summary. Biggest pros, biggest cons.
Okay, pros first. Great battle control with turn meter reduction and the speed debuff. Second, amazing synergy, especially with Khloros, leading to some of the highest damage ceilings. Third, just very high overall damage potential through her consistent follow-ups.
And cons, the reality check.
Cons. Number 1, she is very expensive. Lots of SSR lattices needed for those crucial skill levels and prowess boosts. She's an investment. Number 2, because of that, she can struggle in the early game before you get her skills max and hit those high crit rate numbers.
Right.
She needs that investment to truly blossom, as you said.